Have you ever been drunk enough that you did something really stupid, or you just don't remember what you did? Experiencing nitrogen narcosis is like being intoxicated underwater. How does one go about experiencing nitrogen narcosis, you ask? I'll explain that in a minute. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Tiffany Lay, and today I'm going to explain what nitrogen narcosis is, what the signs and symptoms are, and how to manage narcosis when diving. For those of you who aren't familiar with scuba diving, the word scuba is an acronym for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Scuba divers use tanks filled with compressed air. Attached to the tank is a regulator which is inserted in the mouth that allows you to breathe the air in the tank. And at certain depths, the nitrogen mixed with the air you're breathing can become toxic. While a diver might not be able to completely avoid nitrogen narcosis, following good diving procedures as well as knowing the signs and symptoms will help a diver manage narcosis. The Adventures in Diving Manual, published by the Professional Association of Diving Instructors, or PADI, defines nitrogen narcosis as the intoxicating effect nitrogen produces when you breathe it under pressure. It's also referred to as the rapture of the deep, or the martini effect. For every 50 feet a diver descends underwater, that's equal to 1 martini on an empty stomach. The Gale Encyclopedia of Medicine further explains that nitrogen narcosis typically becomes noticeable at 100 feet underwater, or 2 martinis, and is incapacitating at 300 feet underwater, or 6 martinis, causing stupor, blindness, unconsciousness, and even death. Some of the factors that contribute to nitrogen narcosis are descending too quickly, which causes carbon dioxide buildup in the body, being under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or any kind of cold medication, stress, excitement, fatigue, and cold can all contribute to nitrogen narcosis as well. Some of the effects nitrogen narcosis has on divers is that it creates feelings of euphoria and giddiness. You become disoriented, you lose your balance, you get fixated on one idea, and you lose judgment and reasoning. Natalie Gibb, a dive instructor who writes for ScubaDiving.com, told a story about a group of divers she took down to a shipwreck at about 90 feet. She said she looked over and saw a diver lying on his side in the sand. So she swam over to him and gave him the okay signal. And she said, he looked at me, slightly cross-eyed, and grinned around his regulator. Then he giggled and pointed at the shipwreck. I'd seen enough divers exhibit similar behavior to recognize he was experiencing nitrogen narcosis. In diver jargon, he was narked. So I ended the dive immediately and ascended to the surface. And on the surface, he told me that he thought he was the one that was upright and that the shipwreck, the other divers, and the ocean floor had all been turned on its side as some sort of joke. Most divers aren't aware that they're experiencing nitrogen narcosis, which is why you should always dive with a buddy. You'll want to note any unusual behavior your buddy is showing. Is he acting goofy? Is he sharing his regulator with a fish that's swimming by? Is he acting like a dolphin? Now, for some of you, that might be your buddy's normal behavior, but if it's worse than it normally is, that's usually an indicator that they're experiencing nitrogen narcosis. Also, you can use the finger test. Show your buddy a couple of numbers on your hand, and he has to show you the same number plus 1. One of the qualifications for my advanced open water certification was a deep dive. My instructor took me down to 100 feet and asked me to answer some math problems. He was going to show me a series of numbers on his fingers, and if the sum equaled 11, I was to give him a thumbs up. So we got down to depth, and I was excited to show how fast I could do it and how accurate I could be. And I was confident I had answered every question perfectly and in record time. When we got back up to the surface, he told me that I had answered everything very quickly, and he was impressed, but that I had gotten 3 or 4 of the problems wrong because I gave him a thumbs up when the answer was 10, not 11. So I experienced narcosis in a very mild form. However narked you're going to get will happen anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes at that depth. And you won't get any worse no matter how long you stay at that depth. However, if you go deeper, the narcosis will get worse. And ascending as little as 10 feet will make it subside. When you reach the surface, the nitrogen narcosis should be completely gone. If you want to reduce your chances of experiencing nitrogen narcosis, ScubaDiving.com suggests practicing basic skills underwater, such as sharing air with a buddy or weight dumping, and to practice them frequently. The more you practice, the more automatic they'll become. Also, you'll want to create a clear dive plan and stick to it. If you limit your dive to 100 feet or shallower, you'll greatly reduce your chances of experiencing nitrogen narcosis. Plan all dives thoroughly and accurately, and any tasks that need to be performed should be performed carefully and slowly to avoid making any mistakes. Also, don't dive under the influence of alcohol, drugs, or medication of any kind. A lot of people ask if narcosis can be avoided, and while there's speculation that a tolerance can be built up, it hasn't been proven. So it's safer to assume you'll be narked every time you dive deep. To review what I've discussed today, nitrogen narcosis is generally noticed once a diver reaches 100 feet underwater or starts acting like he's had 2 martinis. To reduce the effects of nitrogen narcosis, practice basic and emergency skills until they're second nature. And while you're diving, be aware of your buddy's actions as well as your own. If any unusual behavior occurs, end the dive immediately and ascend to the surface. As dive instructor John Francis, author of the article Diving Impaired, put it, keep it simple, stupid, because stupid you will be. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning about nitrogen narcosis.